Ancient civilizations might have mastered light in ways we can barely comprehend. Across the globe, from Egyptian tombs to Viking ships, artifacts and legends describe glowing stones and lamps that burned for centuries without any fuel. These are not mere myths but tangible puzzles that challenge our entire timeline of human innovation. By the end of this journey, you will uncover 30 of these mysterious light sources and the heated debates over their impossible origins. How did a Roman cup change color with light? And what was the secret of lamps that never went out? The answers could rewrite history. What does it say about us that we are still captivated by these ancient glows? The flickering torchlight of ancient times casts long shadows on our assumptions. For centuries, we have pictured our ancestors relying solely on the simple, smoky flames of oil lamps and tallow candles. Yet scattered through the historical records of Egypt, Greece, and Mesopotamia are persistent accounts of something else entirely. These texts speak of luminous devices that defied conventional understanding, objects that produced a clean, steady glow without any apparent fuel source. They hint at knowledge that was either lost to time or so misunderstood that we struggle to recognize it today. A prime example of this enduring mystery can be found within the stone walls of the Hathor Temple at Dendera in Egypt. Here, intricate carvings show massive bulb-like objects with snakes writhing inside them, connected by cables to what looks like a power box. To some researchers, these are not symbolic representations of spiritual concepts, but literal depictions of ancient electric lamps. This interpretation, while fiercely debated, sparks a fundamental question. Could the priests of ancient Egypt have harnessed a form of electricity? The mainstream view dismisses this as pure fantasy, attributing the carvings to complex mythological stories. But the sheer detail and specificity of the imagery continue to fuel alternative theories. These stories are far more than mere folklore. They represent a deep and persistent puzzle, one that connects directly to humanity's timeless drive to conquer the darkness and control our environment. This historical context is the essential backdrop for our journey. It is why these 30 mysterious light sources remain so hotly contested and so utterly compelling, each one an invitation to look closer and question what we think we know. The Dendera lamps present a riddle carved in stone. Within the temple's sacred halls, you find these astonishing reliefs. They depict large, elongated objects, reminiscent of glass bulbs, and inside each one, a snake stretches toward a wire. The entire assembly seems connected by a thick cable to a box, which some interpret as a primitive battery or power source. To the modern eye, it looks uncannily like an electrical apparatus. Proponents of this theory, including engineers who have studied the carvings, point to the precise shapes and clear connections. They argue the snakes represent filaments, the cables are for conduction, and the box is a generator. How else, they ask, could ancient artisans have conceived of such a specific and coherent design without a real-world model? Yet the mainstream explanation offered by Egyptologists paints a very different picture. They see these carvings not as technical diagrams, but as profound religious symbols. The so-called bulb is likely a stylized lotus flower from which a divine serpent emerges, representing the cycle of life and cosmic power. The connected box is not a battery but a jed pillar, a symbol of stability. This clash of interpretations is more than an academic dispute. It strikes at the very heart of how we understand the past. Are we seeing evidence of lost technological genius, or are we simply projecting our own world onto an ancient one that operated on an entirely different symbolic language? The Dendera lamps force us to confront our assumptions, setting the stage for the even stranger artifacts to come. Moving from the symbolic carvings of Egypt, we encounter a different kind of mystery, one recorded not in stone but in the written word. The Roman world was illuminated by legends of eternal lamps. Historical accounts from respected figures like Plutarch and Saint Augustine describe a stunning phenomenon. They wrote of lamps discovered in sealed tombs and ancient temples, flames that had burned without rest for years, even centuries, with no attendant to refill them and no visible fuel source. These were not the short-lived flicker of an oil lamp, but a seemingly perpetual glow. Augustine himself pondered if these lights were the work of divine hands or the product of an art, a secret chemistry that had been lost to the ages. Some ancient writers speculated about ever-burning wicks made from mysterious asbestos threads, or oils so refined they could sustain a flame for generations. The idea of a fire that did not consume its fuel captivated the Roman mind, representing a perfect, untiring source of energy. Modern science offers a few tantalizing clues. Experiments with rare earth elements, particularly certain phosphorus compounds, show that some materials can indeed glow for remarkably long periods through slow chemical reactions. Could the Romans have stumbled upon a natural phosphorescent mineral or perfected a formula that created a cold, long-lasting light? Yet no modern replication has come close to matching the legendary longevity of these eternal flames. They stand as powerful symbols of humanity's ancient quest for perpetual energy, a dream that feels both ancient and futuristic. What secret knowledge did these early chemists or engineers possess that we have yet to rediscover? This enigma of a light that refused to die pushes us to look further, to a legend where the source of illumination was not a flame at all, but something far more strange and wonderful. The legend of eternal flames leads us to a tangible artifact, a simple clay pot that could overturn our entire understanding of ancient technology. Found in the outskirts of modern-day Baghdad, this unassuming jar dates back nearly 2,000 years to the Parthian era. Inside it, archaeologists discovered a copper cylinder sealed at the bottom with asphalt, and within that cylinder, an iron rod. To the untrained eye, it looks like a peculiar storage container. But when filled with an acidic electrolyte like vinegar or grape juice, this assembly functions as a primitive battery capable of generating a small but measurable electric current. The discovery was first seriously studied by a German archaeologist named Wilhelm Koenig, who proposed a revolutionary idea. He suggested these batteries could have been used for electroplating, to deposit a thin layer of gold onto silver objects, a process that would have seemed like magic at the time. But this raises another tantalizing possibility. Could a series of these cells connected together have produced enough power to create light? Imagine a string of such batteries powering a simple light source in a dark temple or tomb. A faint but steady glow achieved centuries before the names Volta or Faraday entered the history books. The mainstream archaeological view remains deeply skeptical. Most experts contend the jar was simply a secure storage vessel for sacred scrolls, with the iron and copper components serving a purely ritualistic or structural purpose. They point out the complete absence of any associated electrical equipment like wires or bulbs in the archaeological record. If this was a battery, where is everything else that should go with it? Yet modern reconstructions prove the concept works. Replicas have consistently generated around 1 to 2 volts of electricity. It is not much, but it is undeniable proof of principle. This object forces a difficult question. Are we looking at a mundane storage jar that we have a CCID ENTLLY Chinese letter with an anachronistic function? or is it a rare surviving piece of a lost technological tradition? The Baghdad Battery sits in a frustrating and fascinating limbo, a concrete object with a potential that is both demonstrable and unproven. Its silent, ambiguous presence challenges the linear progression of science and hints at sparks of genius that may have flickered in the ancient dark, only to be forgotten. The silent potential of the Baghdad Battery finds a strange and beautiful echo in a different kind of Roman artifact, one that plays with light itself. In the quiet of a museum, the Lycurgus Cup appears as a simple green glass vessel, but hold it up to the light and a miracle occurs. The glass transforms, glowing a brilliant, translucent red. This is not a trick of the light, but a property locked within the glass for over 1,600 years. The secret lies in what we now call nanotechnology. The Roman artisans who crafted this cage cup in the 4th century AD infused the glass with a precise mixture of gold and silver particles, each 1,000 of times smaller than a grain of sand. These nanoparticles scatter light in a specific way, a phenomenon known today as plasmonics. When light shines on the cup from the front, we see the red color. When light passes through it from behind, we see the green. The precision involved is staggering. For this effect to work, the metal particles had to be ground to an exact, consistent size and distributed evenly throughout the molten glass. Was this a happy accident, a fortunate contamination of the glass batch with precious metal dust? Or was it a deliberate, repeatable technique, a lost form of Roman materials science? Modern researchers are deeply divided. Some materials scientists argue that achieving such a consistent effect required a level of control over particle physics that we simply do not attribute to the ancient world. They point out that reproducing this glass today requires advanced equipment and a deep understanding of colloidal chemistry. This suggests the Romans may have possessed a sophisticated, perhaps even systematic, knowledge of how to manipulate matter at an invisible scale. The Lycurgus Cup is not a lamp, but it is a masterpiece of light manipulation. It demonstrates a conceptual leap from simply creating light to commanding its very behavior. If they could engineer glass to transform color with this level of nanoscale precision, what else were they capable of creating? This mastery over illumination's principles forces us to look for other artifacts where that control was used not just to filter light, but to generate it from within the dark. The mastery of light seen in the Lycurgus Cup, manipulating it at an invisible scale, finds its grandest and most public expression in the legendary Pharos of Alexandria. This was not a subtle glow but a defiant, monumental blaze. Towering over the ancient harbor, it was one of the original 7 wonders, a structure so advanced that its beacon was said to be visible from an impossible distance, a fiery star guiding sailors safely home. Ancient historians like Strabo wrote of a massive, polished bronze mirror, a device that could reflect and project the light of a great furnace with terrifying intensity. Some accounts even claimed this mirror was powerful enough to focus the sun's rays and set enemy ships aflame at sea. The sheer scale of its achievement pushes the boundaries of what we believe was possible. A simple open flame, even a large one, could not produce such a concentrated, far-reaching beam. This leads to compelling theories. Perhaps the architects used not just a mirror, but an early form of compound lens, or a series of curved reflectors that acted like a giant parabolic dish to collimate the light. Others wonder if the fuel itself was the secret. Was it a special blend of oils or resins, something that burned with a whiter, hotter, and cleaner flame than ordinary wood or tallow? The complete destruction of the lighthouse by a series of earthquakes means we are left with descriptions, not blueprints. Its legendary performance remains a ghost in the historical record. The Pharos stands as the ultimate symbol of ancient optical engineering, a machine of light whose full sophistication may have been lost with its stones. This monumental mystery of public illumination makes the intimate, personal glow of the next artifacts all the more intriguing. From the monumental blaze of the Pharos, we descend into the chaos of a Byzantine sea battle. Here, a different kind of fire reigned supreme, one that seemed to defy the very laws of nature. This was Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's most terrifying and closely guarded secret. Imagine a liquid flame that clung to everything it touched, that roared even brighter when doused with water, turning the sea itself into a sheet of fire. Historical accounts describe it being launched from tubes mounted on the prows of warships, a jet of unstoppable destruction that could incinerate an enemy fleet. Its light was not the warm glow of a beacon, but the hellish radiance of a weapon, a persistent, sizzling blaze that illuminated naval battles with terrifying clarity. The true mystery lies in its composition, a formula so secret that it was known only to a select few emperors and artisans, and was ultimately lost forever. What combination of substances could create such a fearsome effect? Most theories suggest a base of crude petroleum or naphtha, which would float and burn on water. But the real secret ingredient, the one that made it water-resistant and perhaps even water-ignited, is the core of the debate. Some historians point to quicklime, which generates intense heat when it contacts water. Others propose saltpeter or even certain phosphorus compounds that could have given the fire its characteristic brilliant, possibly self-illuminating glow. Was the light just a byproduct of its incredible heat, or was the mixture deliberately engineered to produce an unnaturally bright, phosphorescent flame that served to disorient and terrify opponents as much as it burned them? This ultimate weapon of light underscores a critical theme in our search for ancient illumination. The Byzantines did not just discover Greek fire, they weaponized it and then shrouded it in absolute secrecy. Its loss is a stark reminder of how fragile knowledge can be, and how the most advanced technologies of an age could vanish completely, leaving only legends and questions in their wake. It forces us to ask what other combustible mixtures, less famous but equally potent, might have served dual purposes in the ancient world, providing both destructive force and controlled light. This pivot from a weapon of war to an object of spiritual significance is a profound one, leading us from the fiery seas of Byzantium to a single, radiant stone said to guide sailors through the darkest nights. The terrifying, liquid blaze of Greek fire illuminates a brutal truth about lost knowledge, a stark contrast to the serene and mysterious glow said to emanate from sacred spaces. Across diverse cultures, a persistent legend emerges, that of oracle chambers and holy caves lit not by flame, but by stones that glowed with their own inner light. Ancient Hindu texts, for instance, describe the magnificent Pushpaka Vimana, a celestial chariot, as being illuminated by such self-luminous gems. These accounts suggest a world where certain rocks, when gathered and placed, could provide a soft, continuous radiance, banishing shadows from the most profound places of worship and prophecy. The immediate question is, what were these stones? Geologists offer several plausible candidates. Phosphorescent minerals like barium sulfide can absorb light during the day and release it slowly at night, creating a ghostly glow. More ominously, certain rocks containing trace amounts of radioactive elements like uranium or radium emit a faint, constant light through radioluminescence. The problem is that no known naturally occurring mineral provides a light that is both bright enough and safe enough for prolonged human exposure over years or generations. Radioactive ores would eventually cause radiation sickness, while most phosphorescent materials fade quickly. This gap between legend and known science is where the mystery deepens. These stories are almost never just technical reports. They are woven into spiritual narratives where the light is seen as a manifestation of a divine presence or a gift from advanced beings. This blending of the physical and the metaphysical makes it incredibly difficult to separate potential geological fact from powerful religious symbolism. Were ancient priests simply using the natural, eerie glow of a particular cave's walls to enhance their spiritual authority? Or did they possess a sophisticated and now lost mining knowledge that allowed them to identify, quarry, and safely utilize specific luminescent materials? Perhaps they even learned to process or treat certain minerals to enhance their glow or mitigate their dangers. The search for these glowing stones forces us to consider a reality where the boundaries between science, spirituality, and survival were blurred. It is a mystery of geology, mythology, and human ingenuity all at once. This quest for a perfect natural light source leads us to another civilization renowned for its own enigmatic brilliance, and to a single, captivating artifact that seems to hold the very essence of sunlight within it. The quest for a perfect, natural light source leads us from the glowing stones of sacred caves to the storm-tossed ships of the Vikings. Norse sagas speak of a mysterious solarstein, a sunstone, a tool that allowed navigators to pinpoint the sun's location on completely overcast days, even through dense fog or the muted light of twilight. For a seafaring culture that ventured across the North Atlantic, this was not a matter of convenience but of survival. The ability to find true north when the sky was a uniform sheet of gray could mean the difference between discovering new lands and vanishing into the abyss. But how could such a stone possibly work? The answer lies not in creating light, but in seeing it differently. Researchers have identified a clear, calcite crystal known as Iceland spar as a prime candidate. This remarkable mineral has a property called birefringence. It splits a beam of light into two separate rays. By looking through such a crystal and rotating it, a skilled user can detect the polarization pattern of sunlight scattered by the atmosphere. Even when the sun is completely hidden, this pattern remains, and the point where the two images within the crystal match in brightness reveals the sun's hidden position with startling accuracy. Modern experiments have proven this method works, effectively turning a piece of crystal into a sophisticated optical compass. Yet, the debate among historians is far from settled. No sunstone has ever been found in a definitive archaeological context aboard a Viking ship. Was Iceland spar the only mineral used, or did the Vikings employ other light-polarizing crystals? Was this a tool carried by every navigator, or a secret known only to a few master sailors, its knowledge passed down orally and then lost? The sunstone represents a profound understanding of natural principles, a way to harness the invisible qualities of light for a desperately practical purpose. It stands as a brilliant fusion of observation and application, proving that ancient innovation often worked with the world, not against it. This ingenuity was not confined to the frozen north. As we cross the Atlantic, we find the ancient peoples of the Americas mastering light in ways that were equally sophisticated and deeply spiritual. The same ingenuity that guided Viking ships with polarized light finds a more controversial expression in the humid jungles of the Americas. Among the most debated artifacts claimed as ancient light sources are the Mayan crystal skulls. Carved from solid blocks of clear or milky quartz, these hauntingly beautiful objects are said by some to possess an inner luminescence, a faint glow that becomes visible in total darkness or under the light of a full moon. Proponents of their mystical origins point to this purported radiance, suggesting it could stem from the light-scattering properties of the quartz itself, or even from trace amounts of radioactive elements within the crystal. Legends whisper that priests used these skulls in darkened chambers during sacred rituals, where they would project beams of light or even visions to guide spiritual journeys. The technical skill required to carve such a perfect form from incredibly hard quartz without modern tools is staggering, hinting at a lapidary art form that was both advanced and deeply symbolic. Yet, the romantic narrative collides hard with scientific scrutiny. Rigorous analysis of the most famous skulls, including those in major museum collections, has revealed telltale marks of 19th-century jewelers' wheels and polishing compounds. The overwhelming consensus is that these particular artifacts are elaborate hoaxes, created to feed a European fascination with the exotic and the occult. So why does the legend of their glow persist so powerfully? It speaks to a deeper human desire, a longing for a past where magic and technology were one, where objects of profound beauty also held a tangible, mysterious power. The crystal skulls, regardless of their true age, have become vessels for this idea. They force us to confront a difficult question. If these specific skulls are fakes, does that automatically extinguish the possibility that genuine pre-Columbian cultures created objects designed to manipulate light? Could the legend itself be a distorted memory of a real, but lost, tradition of using polished crystals as lenses or prisms in ceremonial spaces? This blurry line between documented hoax and enduring myth perfectly captures the challenge of our entire search, a journey that now takes us to the philosophical traditions of ancient India. The blurry line between myth and technology sharpens dramatically in the ancient skies over India. Sanskrit epics, particularly the Mahabharata, contain breathtakingly detailed accounts of Vimanas, celestial chariots that soared through the air. These were not just vehicles of transport, but formidable warships equipped with weapons of terrifying light. The texts describe the Marika, a device that shot a ray so brilliantly luminous it could blind entire armies and reduce cities to ash. Another weapon, the Shakti, is said to have released a single projectile that shone with the radiance of 1,000 suns, a description that chillingly echoes the effects of a modern plasma beam or even an atomic blast. How could poets from millennia ago conceive of such specific, destructive energy? Mainstream scholarship interprets these passages as powerful metaphors for divine anger, the spiritual light of enlightenment weaponized in an epic story of cosmic conflict. The mirrors and gems mentioned are seen as symbolic objects, not literal components. Yet, a growing number of researchers point to the startlingly technical language. The texts speak of these weapons being constructed from specific combinations of metals and crystals, of lenses and mirrors that could concentrate sunlight into a coherent, destructive force. This suggests a conceptual understanding of optics and energy projection that feels centuries ahead of its time. Were the Vimanas purely mythological, or could they be a distorted, amplified memory of real, advanced technology? Perhaps they represent a lost science of optics, where master artisans learn to focus the sun's rays into a weapon using polished discs of bronze or carefully cut crystals, achieving an effect that would have seemed like divine power to any witness. This narrative forces a profound question about how civilizations record their greatest achievements. When knowledge is lost, does it retreat into legend, waiting to be decoded? The search for these high-tech illuminations does not end in the East. As we move into the dimly lit halls of medieval Europe, a new set of mysteries awaits, where the source of light was attributed not to machines, but to something far more organic and strange. The line between divine power and earthly technology blurs within the sacred vaults of European royalty. The imperial crown of the Holy Roman Empire, a masterpiece of medieval goldsmithing, is central to whispers of a different kind of splendor. Legends suggest that some of its jewels, particularly the large plates of enamel and the magnificent gems, did more than just reflect candlelight. They were said to possess their own inner radiance, casting an unearthly glow in the dim throne rooms during grand ceremonies. Imagine the awe of subjects witnessing their emperor crowned under a halo of self-luminous stones, a living demigod bathed in a light that seemed to come from heaven itself. How could such an effect be achieved? One compelling theory points to phosphorescent materials. Craftsmen could have ground powders from minerals like barium sulfide or certain types of quartz into their paints or glass paste. These substances would absorb light during the day and then release it slowly as a soft, persistent green or blue glow in the darkness. A more startling possibility involves the unknown use of mildly radioactive elements. Certain ancient rocks contain traces of uranium, and when incorporated into glass, they create a faint but constant greenish-yellow luminescence. It is a haunting thought that the very symbol of imperial authority might have gently shimmered with a power its wearers did not understand. Of course, the official records are silent on this matter. No surviving chronicle explicitly describes the crown glowing from within. This leaves us with a compelling dilemma. Were these tales mere poetic metaphors for the perceived divine right of kings, or did medieval artisans possess a secret, almost alchemical knowledge of luminescent materials? The crown's rumored glow exemplifies a recurring theme, where light becomes the ultimate tool of political theater, transforming a mortal ruler into a figure of supernatural authority. This fusion of radiance and rule challenges our perception of the so-called Dark Ages, suggesting they may have been illuminated by forgotten arts. From the enigmatic glow of European crowns, we journey to an even older and more systematic mystery, one etched into bamboo and buried for centuries. The same obsession with eternal flames that captivated the Romans echoes powerfully within the sealed tombs of ancient China. Here, folklore and historical texts describe a stunning phenomenon: ever-burning lamps discovered in the burial chambers of emperors and nobles. These were not mere grave goods, but devices intended to burn for 1,000 years, their unwavering glow a silent guardian for the soul's journey into the afterlife. This practice was deeply intertwined with Taoist alchemy and the philosophical quest for physical immortality. The eternal flame was a microcosm of the eternal spirit, a physical representation of a life force that refused to be extinguished by death. Ancient recipes suggest the use of exotic fuels, like specially refined whale oil or mysterious herbal elixirs, but the sheer longevity described pushes beyond the limits of conventional combustion. How could any oil reservoir last for centuries? This is where the debate ignites. Some researchers point to the possibility of self-replenishing chemical fuels, perhaps a mixture that generated its own combustible gases as it slowly reacted with the tomb's atmosphere. Others propose the use of asbestos wicks, mineral threads that do not burn away, allowing a small amount of fuel to sustain a tiny, persistent flame for an incredibly long time. Yet for every practical theory, there is a compelling symbolic counterargument. Were these lamps ever meant to be literal, or were they powerful metaphors for the undying soul, their eventual discovery by later generations already extinguished, simply proving the fragility of mortal ambitions against time? The stories of these Chinese lamps force us to confront the blurred line between ancient technology and ancient faith. They reveal a universal human desire to conquer the final darkness, not just with a practical light, but with a profound statement about eternity. This intimate connection between illumination and the afterlife makes us wonder what other luminous secrets might still be hidden in unopened tombs, waiting to shed light on the deepest beliefs of our ancestors. From these silent, subterranean chambers, our search for ancient light now surfaces and heads out to sea, where a different kind of legend glows just beneath the waves. The vast Pacific Ocean presents a different kind of darkness, one where the sky and sea merge into an endless, starless void on cloudy nights. For the Polynesian voyagers who conquered this immense expanse, the stars were not just guides, they were a literal map painted on the heavens. But what happened when that map was hidden? Oral traditions whisper of a brilliant solution: navigational star lamps. These were not simple torches. Legends suggest they were specialized devices, perhaps sealed containers of refined oil that burned with an exceptionally clear, steady flame, or even cleverly harnessed bioluminescent organisms like certain algae or bacteria that glowed with a cold blue light. The goal was to replicate the precise, pinpoint quality of a star on the horizon. A navigator could hold such a lamp at arm's length, aligning its artificial star with the hidden real ones in his mind's eye, or use its steady glow to illuminate his sacred navigation charts, etched on woven mats or shells. This practice represents a breathtaking synthesis of knowledge. It merges a profound understanding of astronomy with everyday material innovation. These voyagers did not just read the stars, they learned to recreate them, bringing a piece of the cosmos down into their canoes to defeat the disorientation of total darkness. The tragic flaw for modern archaeologists is that these tools were almost certainly made from organic materials: wood, fiber, gourds, and oils. In the humid, salt-rich environment of the Pacific, such artifacts decay completely, leaving no physical trace beyond the powerful and persistent stories. This absence forces us to trust the oral history, to accept that the greatest inventions are sometimes those that leave no wreckage behind. The Polynesian star lamps stand as a testament to light as a tool of intellectual survival, a way to carry knowledge across the water when the sky itself fell silent. This ingenious fusion of the celestial and the practical finds a powerful parallel on another continent, where the very earth seemed to hold a captured glow. The stone enclosures of Great Zimbabwe hold the silent echoes of 1,000 ceremonial fires. Within these massive, curving walls, generations gathered under the light of flames said to never die out, their perpetual glow a visible symbol of a kingdom's enduring power and spiritual unity. Archaeologists sifting through the ancient ash have found evidence of immense, carefully maintained hearths, but the secret to their legendary longevity remains just out of reach. The architecture itself provides a clue, with some structures featuring clever ventilation channels that could have fed a constant, steady draft to the base of the fire, preventing it from smothering in its own ash. This suggests a sophisticated understanding of combustion physics, turning a simple bonfire into a managed, long-term light source. But the fire's brilliance is another mystery entirely. Were the fuels common animal fats or hardwoods, or did the keepers of the flame possess a more specialized knowledge? Theories propose the use of mineral additives, perhaps copper salts tossed onto the burning logs to produce dazzling green flames, or other compounds that would create a spectrum of colored light to mark different rituals and seasons. This was light as a communal heartbeat, a focal point that drew people together and reinforced their shared identity under the African sky. What sacred ceremonies, coronations, or ancestral invocations relied on the hypnotic dance of these enduring flames? The great stone city offers no written records, only the physical evidence of a culture that mastered the art of public illumination, making light the central character in its most important stories. This mastery of ceremonial fire finds a strange and beautiful parallel across the Atlantic, where an entire civilization seemed to weave light into the very fabric of their cities. The sprawling geoglyphs of the Nazca Desert are a mystery written on an immense scale. But what if we have only been reading half the story? These vast drawings of spiders, monkeys, and geometric shapes are famously visible from the sky, yet some researchers propose their true impact was felt on the ground under the cover of night. Imagine a ceremonial procession moving through the absolute black of the desert. Participants would carry torches, their flames tracing the outlines of the giant figures etched into the earth. From a vantage point on the surrounding hills, this would not be a static image, but a living, breathing light show. The spider might seem to twitch as firelight danced along its legs, or the hummingbird could appear to beat its wings as the procession moved. This theory transforms the lines from a passive message for the gods into an interactive ritual for the people, a communal experience where light and landscape merge to create something magical and transient. Experiments using controlled burns along the lines have shown how fire could dramatically emphasize specific pathways and shapes, potentially guiding participants through a sacred narrative or sending coded messages across the vast plateau. The evidence, however, remains in the realm of compelling speculation. It leans on our understanding of Andean cosmology, where light, especially fire, was a bridge between the human world and the spiritual realm. This idea forces a profound question about ancient ingenuity. How did cultures manipulate their entire environment, not just objects, to harness the power of illumination? The Nazca lines suggest a sophistication that used the very land as a canvas and fire as its brush, a concept that would find a very different but equally ingenious expression in the great stone circles of medieval Europe. The same impulse to automate light appears in the quiet scriptoria of medieval monasteries. Here, monks recorded astonishing accounts of lamps that lit themselves, springing to life without human touch at the precise hour for vespers or matins. These events were often hailed as miracles, a sign of divine favor gracing their sacred routines. Yet, behind the wonder lies a tantalizing possibility of early engineering. Could these self-igniting lamps have been the first steps toward automated light? One plausible explanation involves clever chemical mixtures. A container could hold a small amount of white phosphorus, a substance that ignites spontaneously upon contact with air. A simple clockwork mechanism, perhaps driven by a slowly descending weight or a water clock, might open a shutter at a set time, exposing the phosphorus to the atmosphere and triggering a flame to catch a waiting wick. Another candidate is quicklime, which generates intense heat when mixed with water. A timed water drip onto a pile of quicklime could provide enough warmth to ignite tinder. These were not miracles in the supernatural sense, but marvels of proto-science, where devotional discipline and mechanical curiosity merged into one. The absence of any surviving devices is a stark reminder of how fragile such experimental knowledge was. These monkish inventors were likely more focused on the spiritual outcome than on preserving their methods for posterity. Their efforts show a world where faith did not stifle inquiry, but often inspired it, pushing the boundaries of what was possible in the pursuit of a perfectly ordered, illuminated life. This medieval quest for automated illumination finds a stunning parallel in the heart of the medieval Islamic world, with an artifact that seems to leap centuries ahead of its time. The astrolabe was far more than a navigator's star map. In the hands of Islamic scholars during the Golden Age, this intricate device evolved into a complex instrument of projected light. Certain advanced models, known as universal astrolabes, were equipped with pierced plates called rites, which were intricate, web-like maps of the heavens. The true ingenuity emerged after sunset. A scholar would place a single candle at the device's center. Its flame would cast light through the precisely cut holes of the rite, projecting a perfect, shimmering star chart onto the surrounding walls or a dedicated screen. This was not just a beautiful effect, it was a functional observatory in miniature. By observing how these projected stars moved across the markings, a user could tell the time with remarkable accuracy or predict the rising and setting of celestial bodies from the comfort of a darkened study. This application reveals a conceptual leap from simply observing light to actively manipulating it as a tool for measurement and prediction. It demonstrates a sophisticated grasp of optics and geometry that feels centuries ahead of its time. The debate among historians is not whether these devices worked, but how widespread and influential this practice truly was. Were these light-projecting astrolabes common tools in every major learning center, or were they rare masterpieces, the secret weapons of the most brilliant astronomers? Their existence suggests a direct intellectual lineage to later projection technologies, from the magic lantern to the modern planetarium. This fusion of fire and knowledge represents a pinnacle of ancient innovation, where light itself became a precise language for reading the cosmos. From this high point of Islamic science, we journey to a much older and wilder tradition of illumination, one born from the thunderous skies of the Norse sagas. The Norse mind conceived of a light woven from the impossible. Gleipnir, the magical fetter that bound the monstrous wolf Fenrir, was said to shine with its own ethereal glow, a radiance born from ingredients like the sound of a cat's footfall and the breath of a fish. This was not a light you could kindle with flame or fuel. It was a luminescence forged from concepts, a brilliance that defied every law of the physical world. While purely a mythological construct, its symbolic power is immense. It represents an ancient understanding of light as something that could be fundamental, irreducible, and utterly mysterious. What natural wonders could have inspired such a profound idea? The shimmering, otherworldly curtains of the aurora borealis dancing across the northern sky, or the ghostly, silent glow of phosphorescent fungi in a deep forest, could easily have been interpreted as lights that transcended normal understanding. Myths like Gleipnir's glow are not just fanciful stories, they are cultural vessels for recording and explaining rare, awe-inspiring light events that early people witnessed but could not scientifically explain. They blur the line between observed reality and spiritual folklore, suggesting that our ancestors were not just storytellers, but also keen naturalists trying to codify the world's wonders. This journey from the legendary lights of the North brings us to a much more tangible and equally puzzling mystery from the sands of Egypt, where chemistry and craftsmanship may have created a glow that was nearly as magical. Deep within the sealed tombs of the Pharaohs, a silent army of Ushabti figurines stood guard. These small servants were meant to toil for the deceased in the afterlife, and some whisper they were equipped with a ghostly light to do so. A persistent theory suggests that certain Ushabtis were coated in paints that glowed in the dark, their surfaces imbued with radium or phosphorescent minerals gathered from the desert. Imagine the intended effect in the absolute black of a sealed burial chamber. These figurines would not be inert statues, but a faintly shimmering company, an eternal, self-illuminating workforce for the soul's journey. The practical chemistry behind this is tantalizing. The Egyptians were master pigment makers, grinding malachite for green and lapis lazuli for blue. It is not a great leap to suppose they discovered minerals that absorbed and slowly released light. Phosphorescent compounds like barium sulfide could have been mixed into their binding mediums, creating a paint that glowed for hours after being exposed to torchlight. A more unsettling possibility involves radioactive elements. Some granite stones in the region contain trace amounts of radium, and a paste made from such crushed rock would emit a constant, faint luminescence through radioluminescence. The problem, as always, is proof. After 3,000 years, any organic binder has decayed, and the pigments themselves have faded or chemically changed. A paint that once glowed brightly might now be completely inert, its secret locked away by time. This forces a difficult question about the scale of their knowledge. Was the use of such glowing paint a rare, accidental discovery by a single artisan, or was it a deliberate, widespread practice in royal workshops? If it was common, it would imply a systematic understanding of certain material properties, an applied chemistry of light that we have only just begun to suspect. The silence of the Ushabtis leaves us wondering just how brilliantly the Egyptian afterlife was meant to shine, a mystery that finds a vibrant parallel in the jungles of the ancient Americas. Those colossal Olmec heads carved from solid basalt stand as silent sentinels, yet in the flicker of firelight, their permanence could have been transformed into something alive. Imagine a night ceremony where priests placed torches around the base of one of these 20-ton giants. The dancing flames would cast long, shifting shadows across the stone face, making the deeply carved eyes seem to blink and the stern lips appear to twitch into a momentary scowl. This was not just art to be seen, but an experience to be felt. The static representation of a ruler could become a dynamic, living presence, a demonstration of power that used the fundamental contrast between light and dark to awe the community. Anthropologists point to similar practices in other early cultures, where static monuments were designed as stages for the drama of fire. Without direct evidence, we are left with a powerful hypothesis, one that asks us to see these ancient wonders not as we find them today under the harsh sun, but as they might have been intended under the spell of the night. This concept of stone brought to life by flame finds a haunting echo in the misty highlands of the Celtic world, where light itself was said to be captured in a stone. Celtic myths speak of cauldrons that could restore the dead to life, but their power was not limited to resurrection. These legendary vessels, described in texts like the Mabinogion, were also said to emit their own unearthly glow, a radiance that promised both physical and spiritual renewal. This was far more than a simple cooking pot over a fire. The light from these cauldrons symbolized the very spark of life itself, a divine energy made visible. How could a physical object produce such an effect? One compelling theory points to the advanced skill of Celtic metalworkers. A cauldron crafted from a highly polished bronze or gold alloy, when placed in the center of a ritual space, would not just contain a fire, it would actively transform it. The hammered and buffed metal surface could act like a parabolic reflector, concentrating the scattered light of the flames into a more intense, directed beam, making the entire vessel seem to shine from within. Another possibility involves the strategic inlaying of crystals or gems around the cauldron's rim. As firelight flickered, these stones would catch and refract the light, creating a dazzling display of dancing sparks and colors that would have seemed truly magical to any observer. This fusion of practical craftsmanship and profound symbolism is the true heart of the mystery. The cauldron was not just a tool, it was a central character in the story, an object where the line between a cleverly made artifact and a sacred relic completely blurred. Its legendary glow went on to influence centuries of European folklore, evolving into the quest for the Holy Grail, another sacred vessel often depicted with a heavenly radiance. This deep connection between light, life, and sacred containers did not exist in a vacuum. Far across the world, a different culture was mastering the art of illumination in a way that was just as communal but far more mobile. That same deep connection between light and life echoes in the ancient songs of the Australian continent. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories hold the memory of sacred fire sticks, tools that were far more than simple kindling. These were objects of profound power, said to produce light without being consumed by fire. The description is a riddle that bridges the practical and the spiritual. On one hand, this could be a precise account of a friction fire drill, where the rapid spinning of a stick in a wooden socket creates a glowing ember, a tiny, intense point of light that is not yet a flame. On the other, it might refer to sticks deliberately coated in phosphorescent fungi gathered from the forest, which would emit a soft, ethereal, and truly fireless glow in the dark. These sticks were not merely tools, they were central characters in creation myths, the very instruments used by ancestral beings to bring form and knowledge to the world. To carry such a stick was to carry a piece of that original creative power, a direct link between the practical need for illumination and the spiritual understanding of the land. The exact methods remain guarded within oral tradition, a knowledge passed down not through blueprints but through story and ceremony. This reminds us that for many ancient cultures, the secret of light was not just a technical formula to be written down, but a living wisdom to be experienced and protected. It underscores a universal truth that the quest to master illumination was always, at its heart, about survival, meaning, and our place in the cosmos. This indigenous ingenuity with light was a global phenomenon, a fact made stunningly clear by a discovery from the heart of the Persian Empire. The ingenuity of the Persians transformed their harsh desert climate into an advantage, not just for cooling, but potentially for illumination. Their iconic wind towers, or badgers, rose high above city skylines, designed to capture the slightest breeze and funnel it down into the heart of buildings. Yet some researchers propose these architectural marvels had a second, more radiant function. The shafts of these towers presented a perfect conduit for light. By strategically placing polished metal mirrors or sheets of reflective limestone at certain angles within the shafts, ancient builders could have redirected powerful beams of sunlight deep into windowless rooms and underground spaces. Imagine standing in a cool, dark chamber and seeing a brilliant shaft of light descend from an unseen opening high above, moving across the floor like a natural clock. This would have been a form of passive lighting technology, a way to harness the sun itself to reduce the constant need for smoky, fuel-consuming lamps during daylight hours. The core of the debate is one of intent. Was this a deliberate, engineered feature of these structures, or merely a happy side effect of their primary ventilation purpose? Skeptics argue that no definitive evidence, like ancient mirrors found in situ, has been uncovered to prove the theory, but the possibility remains compelling. It suggests a society that thought holistically about its environment, viewing architecture as a tool to master both air and light with elegant, energy-free solutions. This ancient approach to optimizing natural light through design feels remarkably modern, a precursor to the sustainable architecture we champion today. From these sunlit Persian shafts, our search for architectural light leads to the misty, glacier-carved fjords of Scandinavia, where a different kind of structure holds its own luminous secret. Scattered across Viking trading posts and burial sites, small spheres of colored glass hold a subtle secret. Norse artisans crafted these beads with a precision that went beyond mere decoration. Many were formed with a slightly convex shape, and when sunlight struck them just right, they could act as primitive lenses, focusing light into a bright, sharp point. Others, made of clear or translucent glass, would fracture the light passing through them, casting tiny rainbows onto the walls of a dim longhouse. Hung in a window or perhaps even strung near an oil lamp, these beads transformed ordinary light into something magical and multi-hued. While their primary purpose was certainly ornamental, a mark of status and wealth from far-off trade routes, their optical properties could not have gone unnoticed. A clever navigator might have used a particularly clear bead to concentrate the sun's rays to start a fire, or a chieftain could have used the dazzling scatter of colors during a feast to enhance his storytelling. This represents a different kind of mastery over illumination, one that was not about producing light, but about adorning it, playing with its very nature for cultural and aesthetic pleasure. It forces us to expand our definition of an ancient light source. Sometimes the goal was not just to see in the dark, but to see the darkness transformed, to fill a space with beauty and wonder. This fusion of art and optics finds its grandest expression far from the Norse fjords, in the sun-baked temples of India. The rock-cut temples of Ellora are a symphony in stone, choreographed by the sun itself. Deep within these hand-carved caves in India, ancient architects engineered a celestial calendar. They positioned doorways, windows, and shafts so that beams of sunlight would pierce the inner darkness, illuminating specific statues and altars only on solstices or equinoxes. During a festival, a shaft of light might strike the forehead of a Shiva statue, or on the winter solstice, a single ray could set a central lingam ablaze with golden light. This was not random. It required generations of astronomical observation and a profound understanding of the sun's changing path across the sky. The precision is so exact that it ignites a fierce debate. Did these builders work from complex geometric calculations and detailed architectural plans, a feat of advanced mathematics, or was this knowledge built slowly, painstakingly, over centuries of watching, marking, and adjusting, a monumental achievement of trial and error? The result, regardless of method, was a form of spiritual technology. They turned the sun into a participant in their rituals, using its predictable journey to mark sacred time and make the divine presence feel tangible. The very rock of the mountain was shaped to capture and direct the cosmos, creating moments of awe that must have solidified faith for every witness. This global impulse to weave sunlight into worship connects distant cultures. Far across the ocean, another civilization was achieving a similar feat, carving their own relationship with the sun into the spine of a mountain. High in the Andes, the Inca transformed gold into captured sunlight. Spanish chroniclers who first entered the sacred Coricancha temple in Cusco wrote of vast sheets of polished gold, not merely displayed as treasure, but strategically placed on walls and altars. Among the most stunning artifacts were enormous, meticulously hammered discs, positioned to catch the first rays of the dawn. These were not inert decorations, they were active instruments of light. As the sun rose, these discs would reflect a concentrated beam, flooding the temple's dark interior with a brilliant, moving spotlight that traced a path across the stone floor, directly illuminating idols and sacred spaces. The effect was a daily reenactment of the sun god Inti blessing his own house. The practical application was as ingenious as the spiritual one. On a clear day, the flash from one of these discs could be seen for miles across the mountain valleys. This provided a swift, efficient means of communication between distant temples and military outposts, a silent language of light pulsing across the empire. The Spanish, blinded by greed, saw only the material value. They systematically looted and melted down nearly every disc, turning sacred technology into mundane bullion and irrevocably breaking this chain of luminous communication. The true loss was a deep understanding of reflective science. The Incas had mastered the art of shaping metal to control light, using its properties to unite their vast territory under both the symbolic and literal gaze of the sun. Their civilization was built on light, and with the destruction of these discs, a fundamental pillar of their culture was extinguished. This sophisticated use of reflection finds a strange parallel in the shadowy workshops of medieval Europe, where alchemists pursued a different kind of luminous gold. The shimmering gold of the Incas reflects a world where light was tangible, but in the smoky laboratories of medieval Europe, alchemists pursued a glow born from the most base of materials. Their secretive texts speak of phosphorescent elixirs, potions that shimmered with a ghostly light in the dark confines of their workshops. The primary ingredient for these eerie concoctions was often human urine, which they would boil down for days until it yielded a waxy substance that could spontaneously ignite upon contact with air. This was white phosphorus, one of the first elements isolated through chemical manipulation, though the alchemists had no modern concept of an element. They saw it as a form of captured fire, a tangible piece of the philosopher's stone's transformative power. The creation of such a material was incredibly dangerous, often leading to poisoning, explosions, and horrific burns, which only added to its aura of forbidden, arcane knowledge. This practice perfectly blurs the line between primitive chemistry and pure magic. For the alchemist, the glowing flask was not just a scientific curiosity. It was physical proof that they were on the path to unlocking the secrets of matter itself, to achieving spiritual enlightenment through physical transformation. The light was both a tool and a symbol. Other alchemical practices involved creating inks that only became visible under candlelight, or attempting to distill the very essence of sunlight from gold. These experiments, though shrouded in secrecy and symbolic language, represent the fragile roots of modern chemistry. They were messy, dangerous, and often misguided, but they were born from the same relentless drive to understand and command the natural world that fuels our science today. What other luminous secrets were encoded in their cryptic manuscripts, lost when their laboratories were abandoned? This intimate, perilous quest for a man made glow stands in stark contrast to the next legend, one born not in a laboratory but from the heart of the living earth as our journey nears its end. Deep beneath the sun-baked mesas of the American Southwest, the Anasazi built chambers of shadow and flame. Their circular kivas dug into the earth were more than mere rooms. They were portals where fire became a living script. The central fire pit was the heart of this sacred space, but its purpose may have extended far beyond simple heat or general illumination. Archaeologists note the precise placement of these pits and the intricate ventilation systems that fed them. This has led to a compelling theory that the Anasazi were masters of ritual stagecraft, using the flames to project specific, shifting patterns of light and shadow onto the smooth, plastered walls. By strategically opening or closing air vents, a shaman could control the fire's intensity, making the light flicker and dance in a preordained rhythm. Some researchers even speculate about the use of polished stone or mica sheets as primitive mirrors, reflecting and redirecting the fire's glow to highlight specific petroglyphs or altar stones at key moments in a ceremony. The hard evidence is the soot, the carbon staining that tells us a fire burned here for generations. The full story, however, is written in the practices of their descendants. Modern Pueblo peoples who trace their ancestry to these ancient builders continue to use kivas for ceremonies where light and darkness are central characters in the ritual drama. This continuity suggests the Anasazi fire pits were not just sources of light, but instruments of it. They used controlled illumination to guide the community's shared spiritual experience, making the very air in the kiva feel charged with meaning. What profound stories were told in that dancing light, and what knowledge was passed down in the hypnotic play of shadow? These silent, subterranean chambers hold the echo of a culture that understood light as a communal bond. This ancient American tradition of sacred illumination finds a final, puzzling counterpart in the cold, stone halls of a Scottish castle. Rising from the Somerset levels like a great, green pyramid, Glastonbury Tor has long been a beacon for pilgrims and storytellers. For centuries, English folklore has whispered of an eternal flame burning at its summit, a light inextricably linked to the legends of King Arthur and the quest for the Holy Grail. Some tales say this was no ordinary fire, but a supernatural blaze that guided the faithful and symbolized a hope that could never be extinguished. The practical explanations are as compelling as the myths. The hill is situated in a landscape rich with natural phenomena, including marsh gas. Could a natural, slow leak of methane from a fissure in the rock have sustained a small, flickering flame for years, a seemingly miraculous fire that required no human effort to maintain? Alternatively, the flame might have been a carefully tended ritual fire, kept alive by a succession of priests or monks who saw its perpetual nature as a divine duty. This was more than just a light on a hill. It was a symbol of enduring faith, a visual anchor in the physical world for deeply held spiritual beliefs. The absence of archaeological proof for a permanent flame does nothing to diminish the power of the story. It reveals how a specific, dramatic landscape can ignite the human imagination, transforming a hill into a symbol and a flicker into a legend. The Tor itself becomes the light source, its very presence inspiring tales of endurance and mystery that have burned brightly in the cultural memory for far longer than any physical fire ever could. This final legend from the British Isles brings our journey to a close, prompting a look back across the globe at the patterns we have uncovered. From the legendary flame of Glastonbury Tor, we ascend to a vision of light that encompasses the entire cosmos. The final and 30th source is not a physical artifact, but a symbol found in nearly every corner of the ancient world, the world tree. In Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is an immense ash tree whose roots and branches hold the 9 realms, shimmering with a dew that is said to be pure light. In Buddhism, the Bodhi tree is the very spot where the Buddha attained enlightenment, becoming a symbol of supreme wisdom that illuminates the mind. The Mayans revered the ceiba tree as a pillar connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens, often depicted with celestial bodies glowing within its branches. These are not literal lamps, but they are perhaps the most profound light sources of all. They represent cosmic energy, divine knowledge, and the very structure of reality, all visualized as a form of radiance. This universal symbol ties every thread of our journey together. It connects the practical light of the Baghdad Battery to the spiritual glow of the Chinese eternal lamps, and the weaponized beams of the Vimanas to the guiding star of the Polynesian navigators. The world tree tells us that for our ancestors, light was never just a tool for seeing in the dark. It was the essence of life, the spark of consciousness, and the ultimate metaphor for understanding. What deeper truth does this reveal? It suggests that humanity's long quest to master illumination, from the first controlled fire to the most advanced laser, is driven by something far more profound than mere necessity. We are drawn to light because on some fundamental level we see ourselves in it. We seek to create it, control it, and understand it as a way of touching the divine, of grasping the universe, and of finding our own place within the grand design. These 30 mysteries, from the concrete to the cosmic, are not just puzzles from the past. They are a mirror reflecting our own endless curiosity, a testament to the unquenchable human spirit that refuses to accept the darkness. 30 enigmatic light sources now lie before us, a constellation of mysteries spanning continents and millennia. Stepping back from these individual puzzles, a broader landscape comes into view, marked by deep fault lines in how we interpret the past. The debates surrounding these artifacts consistently fall into a few compelling categories. Many appear to be lost technologies, techniques so advanced or so specialized that they were never widely adopted, their secrets dying with the few who mastered them. Others are almost certainly cases of symbolic interpretation, where we in the modern world project our own technological understanding onto ancient art and mythology, mistaking a sacred symbol for a technical schematic. A third group points to natural phenomena, rare geological or chemical events that early people witnessed, codified into legend, and which we are now trying to decode with our scientific vocabulary. This is where the great divide emerges. On one side, you have researchers who argue for a radical reassessment of history, suggesting that flashes of advanced knowledge in chemistry, optics, or even electricity did indeed flicker in the ancient dark. They point to the precise nano-engineering of the Lycurgus Cup or the demonstrable function of the Baghdad Battery as evidence that our timeline of innovation is flawed. On the other side, mainstream scholars wield Occam's razor, the principle that the simplest explanation is usually the correct one. They contend that an ornate carving is just a carving, a strange pot was merely for storage, and a legendary flame was a metaphor, not a mechanical reality. They remind us that absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but it is a reason for caution. This fundamental tension between evidence and imagination is not a weakness in our search, but its very engine. These unresolved debates do not leave us with a poorer understanding of history, but a richer, more dynamic one. They force us to acknowledge the gaps in our knowledge and to remain humble in the face of our ancestors' ingenuity. So why does this collection of unsolved mysteries hold such a powerful grip on us? It is because they are more than just historical footnotes. They are invitations. Each one is a door cracked open, challenging us to question the official story, to look closer at the familiar narrative of human progress, and to wonder what brilliant sparks of genius have been lost in the long night of time. They represent the thrilling space between what we know for certain and what we can still dream is possible. Our journey through these 30 ancient lights reveals a profound truth about the human spirit. We have seen lost technologies, symbolic interpretations, and natural wonders woven together into a single, shimmering tapestry of innovation, myth, and mystery. From the debated electrical diagrams of Dendera to the cosmic glow of the world tree, each story challenges the neat timeline of progress we so often take for granted. These are not just footnotes in a history book, they are open invitations to reconsider the brilliance of our ancestors. They force us to admit the limits of our own knowledge and to embrace the thrilling uncertainty that lies at the heart of every great discovery. History is not a closed book filled with final answers, but a living, breathing investigation where light serves as our most vital guide, both literally and metaphorically. It illuminates not just dark spaces, but the very contours of human ingenuity. As you reflect on these tales of eternal flames and glowing stones, let them inspire you to look deeper into the shadows of the past. What other secrets might be waiting in the darkness, just beyond the reach of our understanding? We would love to hear which of these mysteries captured your imagination the most. Share your own thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thank you for joining this exploration into the ancient world's most enigmatic glows. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe for more mysteries that challenge what we think we know. And above all, keep the light of your own curiosity burning bright.